One of the things that's interesting is like you mentioned Deuce, and we've talked a little bit about the Knicks kind of putting a lot on his plate in terms of this bench unit really needs a lift, and he's really the guy that has to do it night in and night out, and he doesn't always. But when he plays really well, it matters. Like I think it's one of the things that shifts the Knicks the most if Deuce McBride is having a really good game off the bench, whether he's shooting or playing defense at a high level or both. Do you think they're going to need to play him more down the stretch? Because it, not that they're going to be benching Mikal Bridges a ton, but you may need this Deuce McBride option to close games next to Jalen Brunson in the event that Mikal Bridges is not getting to the rim, is not hitting his shots, is struggling on defense or whatever, or God forbid if OG Anunoby gets hurt again. Like these are the things that could happen. So how much Deuce McBride do you think we should see down the stretch?
As much as they can take, as much as he can give, and as much as the Knicks need, they need to play Deuce McBride. This is what is the reality right now. The Knicks are an analytically driven organization now, from the front office to the coaching staff to the players. They're all in sync with looking at the numbers and trying to apply their game to what their data is telling them and being able to adjust accordingly. Right now, the top 6 lineups that the Knicks have played this season that have earned double-digit point differentials, which means their net rating, they're outscoring teams by 10 plus points or more. Every single lineup includes Deuce McBride. Every single lineup. They want to be a team where 40% of their shot diet is from beyond the arc. In every lineup that is shooting 40% of their shots from 3 and hitting 40% of their shots from 3 includes Deuce McBride. That's not an exaggeration. That's not an approximation. That's just fact. He has been one of the main catalysts to the best version of the Knicks that we have seen. So there's been the rage across the fan base and within Knicks Twitter and within like the Knicks fan base about whether or not Deuce should be starting. And that was something to start from before the season. And I knew my position was, I think Josh Hart, numbers be damned, I think Josh Hart brings those real world intangibles and benefits to your offense that may not show up in the score sheet or may not analytically play out the way that you think it will, because I've seen it. I've seen him game break another team. I've seen him get clutch rebounds. I've seen what his hustle can do. But at some point, you have to look at what the data is telling you and try something else. I remember when Tibbs gave that comment about how Mitch was their projected 5. So almost to imply, hey, this starting 5 that we're running wasn't really the starting 5 that we had in mind. But then that leads to the question, well, why aren't you trying other things? Why are you trying other things? Why is it that we have to see lineups of Hart and Precious Achiuwa, 2 non-shooters or shooters that aren't hitting above 30% from 3? Or those who aren't an actual 3-point threat. When you play those guys together, it makes the defense, it eases up on the opposing defenders. They can just play off, not care about those shooters, and then pack the paint. Or just play help defense around. You're making the game easier for them. And I think the other part of it is we might not even be seeing the best of Deuce off the bench. He might be one of those players that thrives in a starting role, because I remember when Josh Hart was a 6th man, and that paid major dividends for the Knicks. So I think if you're going to be willing to bench Mikal down the stretch of games, if he doesn't have it, you got to keep that same energy for all your other wings. Josh Hart didn't have it last night.
No, he didn't
have it. It was clear. It was evident. It was just one of those games. And to go to a Deuce lineup with OG and Hart and Mikal and Brunson, to go to that 5 towards the end, like when the 11-0 run, when the tidal wave already hit, it was a little dispiriting. And I think those are the type of decisions on the margins that can make or break this team. So I don't know if it's a matter of, hey, we're waiting until the playoffs to show all of our cards. But sometimes the cards, sometimes when you have the cards, you can't be beat. No matter what probability tells you, no matter what the other hand is. Sometimes you just got blackjack. And we got to go to the next hand.
Right.
I think they have a blackjack hand. Or at worst, 21.
Right.
At worst, 21. I think I see an ace and a face card anytime Deuce is in that starting lineup, and I would love to see them play it more.
I wonder, because of what you said there, Jeff, you talked about how the organization is so analytically driven. This is all true. They're looking at this data. I've been wondering, too, why they didn't play it. I also was with you. I was not a fan of putting Josh Hart on the bench at the beginning of the season. I said start him for the same exact reasons. However, you've brought up a lot of things I think that's been true that we haven't even dove into yet on this show. Josh Hart has been, I saw somebody just say this in the chat, he's been reluctant to shoot. We all know this. He's not a great outside shooter, and he's been reluctant to shoot from the outside, which has bothered me more. You want to see him let it fly when he's open, and teams are going to leave him open. They're going to play him that way. The other point you mentioned, Jeff, he's not been as effective on defense. If you look at the cleaning the glass numbers, it all reflects that. His numbers are down across the board. Rebounding numbers, great. And they're up. His defensive metrics, they are down. When I hear you say all that, right, we know that Josh Hart is a Tibbs guy. We know this, right? Like, he is a Tibbs guy.
He's New York's guy. I mean, I keep it real. He's New York's guy, too.
the fans love him, too. I don't know where Mikal Bridges is on being a Tibbs guy. That I'm not so sure about yet. Like, where is he? We've seen him benched twice. Brian and I did a show after Charlotte where he got benched. We saw it the other day in Miami. So we've seen a willingness from Tibbs. I guess what I'm wondering, and Brian, you could chime in on this too, is will Tibbs trust the data? Is he going to trust the data and say, and I don't know if it's a full ripping off of the Band-Aid, because we're talking about Deuce getting more playing time, but is this a situation where he's going to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to start Deuce. I'm gonna move Josh Hart back to the bench because this is what could be best for the team. I don't know if I trust that Tibbs will do that. We've seen him make some moves, but will he do that? And is that the move? Is the move starting Deuce McBride? Like, is that the hand you want to start to show? And look, you're talking about wait to the playoffs. We're talking about 21 games left. I mean, it's getting late. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's getting late. You gotta show that hand. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. If you ask me to bet some money, I'm not putting a bet that Deuce is gonna. It's gonna have to take something where they're down 2-0 to Boston, and it's looked like these other three games, and you need that shot in the arm before you come back to Madison Square Garden. That's his break glass in case of emergency. We've tried our luck, and now we got to put the bat signal in the air. Somebody call the Batman, because
but Brian, I see you shaking your head. That could be too late. That could be too late. Right?
Well, we talked about this because, like, all right, in the first round, if it's 2-1 Pistons, like if they take one of the games at the Garden and then they win game 3 in Detroit, at that point, something's going to change. Like, and at that point, is it going to be too late? I don't think they lose to the Pistons in the first round, but you can't really mess around with that team the way I think some Knicks fans think you can. Like, I know they have this image that, hey, they're just the Pistons. And it's like, Cade Cunningham could have the best series out of anybody in that series. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility.